everybody. I'd like to welcome you today for the annual Soapbox final. My name is Barbara Nolan, and as head of the European Commission representation in Ireland, I'm delighted to join you today, even if only virtually, at this important event organised by the Europe Direct Centres in Ireland. Just to recall that this competition is divided into two age categories. One for those who are 16 and under, and another one for those over 17. And there are very good prizes. The regional winners will win an iPad as a prize, and the overall winner in each category today will get a prize of €1,000. On past experience, we know that the standard will be high and the presentations will be of very, very good quality. I want to thank the judges for agreeing to sit on the judging panel today. Just to recall, what are the Europe Direct Centres? The Europe Direct Centres are part of a Europe-wide network of information points for EU citizens, funded by the European Union and local authorities. And in the case of Ireland, it's the local government management agency that organises the Europe Direct Centres. These centres provide a link between the European Union and its citizens. They provide information and advice on EU policies and actively promote local and regional debates. This helps the European Union institutions to disseminate local and regional information, giving the public the opportunity and means to send feedback to our institutions. So it's their job to inform citizens about what Europe actually means in their daily lives and what rights and benefits they can enjoy as European citizens. The subject of your debate today, lies, damn lies, and statistics, is a phrase often associated with the great American writer and humorist Mark Twain. It is used to describe the persuasive power of untruths, half-truths, and numbers, particularly the use of statistics in order to bolster weak arguments or put out false information. None of this, of course, applies to our soapbox speakers today, who will no doubt put forward strong and very robust arguments to put forward their cases. However, the phrase does have some relevance in the context of today, and in particular, the COVID-19 pandemic that we are currently experiencing, where we have seen a lot of disinformation and misinformation about what the pandemic is and is not about. Disinformation is verifiably false or misleading information created and presented and disseminated for economic gain or to intentionally deceive the public. Misinformation is verifiably false information that is spread without the intention to mislead, but it is often shared because the user believes it to be true. So it's less malign, if you like, than disinformation, but it also sometimes has the same effect in terms of misinforming the public. So we need to ensure that lies do not shape people's opinions and that the public can access correct information in a timely manner. In our work on disinformation and misinformation, we have noticed that there are many false narratives circulating in relation to COVID, which can put people off getting vaccinated and can actually be a threat to their lives at the end of the day. So we're working hard to tackle the spread of online disinformation and misinformation. And we want to make sure that it doesn't have this negative effect that I mentioned earlier on how people understand the world today. The internet and social media are a force for good, but they can also be abused. And we know that the number of internet, text, email scams have multiplied in recent years. So we need to be careful and try to encourage people to become tech savvy so that they are not taken in, if you like, by false narratives and end up believing in theories which are patently untrue. So this is why our soapbox exchange today is really particularly pertinent and relevant. And to be forearmed is to be forewarned when it comes to disinformation and misinformation. So that's my little introduction. Before I finish, I'd like to thank the staff of the local government management agency, which is the host structure, as I said, in Ireland for the Europe Direct Centres. I'd like to thank them for organising this event, and the centre managers for organising the events in their various centres. You are the people that make this soapbox happen, so thank you very much. And I would like to wish all the contestants today the very best of luck and lots of fun on the soapbox. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and you're very welcome to the Europe Direct Soapbox final. We would have loved to have this event in person, but because of the current COVID situation, we're having to run it virtually. Nevertheless, I hope it won't take away from your enjoyment of the event. So this is an event that has culminated in today's final. Before the final, we had the regional events in each of the Europe Direct Centres. And I had a look at some of the contestants in the regional centres. And to be honest, the high standard was phenomenal. So there was a lot of interest from people within the Europe Direct Centres itself. So that's very reassuring. It's a great subject to talk about, and it's clear that a lot of people did some fantastic work, thinking and logic around the subject. So the format of the competition is that each contestant has 3 minutes to speak. And what we're doing this time is we're using the same video entry that was used for the regional events. So those of you who were contesting will have seen yourselves already. The judging criteria is really quite straightforward. What the judges are doing is they're looking at the contents of the presentation and the evidence of preparation for the presentation that you're doing. They're going to be looking at the presentation itself, the delivery, including the adherence to the time limit. They're going to be looking at the structure and clarity of your presentation. And they're going to be looking at the overall effectiveness and impact of your presentation. So I would like to say thank you very much to the judges. It's a big and sometimes thankless task to do something like this. But the judges are chaired by Paula Butler, who is the Assistant Chief Executive in the Local Government Management Agency. And the Local Government Management Agency is that agency which is responsible for the library service. And this is the connection with the Europe Direct Centres, because in Ireland, they're all based in local libraries. Paula is responsible for local government strategy, research and communications in the Local Government Management Agency, including being the boss of the Library Development Unit, which is tasked with the delivery of the Public Libraries Strategy in 2022. She is joined on the judging panel by Helen Ryan. And Helen is a policy officer with the National Adult Literacy Agency. Helen works on health and media literacy and supports organizations to become literacy friendly. Some of her work includes working with libraries, the community and voluntary sector, and developing materials and readers for adult literacy students. Then both of those people are joined by John Shortall. And John has worked in public libraries for almost 20 years. And he's currently the county librarian with Carlow County Council Public Library Service. He also happens to be a vice president of the Library Association of Ireland, and he enjoys working with his colleagues around the country, especially the public library section and the Libraries Ireland Week Task Force. John is originally from Kilkenny, and he enjoys reading, films, and long walks with his dog Daisy. And like every Kilkenny person, he loves hurling. The final judge on the panel is Lisa Nick-on-the-Vrehev. And Lisa has been head of communications and head of education at the European Movement Ireland since early in 2019. And she oversees all communication policies, strategy, and activity for the organization. She leads on press engagement, languages, and in particular on the Irish language communications and education, youth, and engagement programs. She worked in third level education for 9 years and has a broad range of experience in communications, campaigning, and Irish language activism and education, and volunteers with LGBTQ and charities Shout Out and Equality for Children. And indeed, some of the contestants today are going to speak Oscailga. So we're very lucky to have Lisa on the panel for us. So thank you, everybody. Thank you all the judges, and we look forward to your deliberations and results in just a little while of what you thought of the contestants. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for this event. So could I please welcome the Minister for Rural and Community Development, Ms. Heather Humphreys.
Thank you, Tim, and hello, everyone. I am delighted to address you today as you mark the 11th Europe Direct Soapbox competition final. This annual event has gone from strength to strength over the years, thanks to the support it receives from the European Commission. I want to say a big congratulations to all the participants, but especially those who have earned their place in the national final. I want to acknowledge the Europe Direct Centres, which have organised the regional events under challenging circumstances once again this year. They are a critical link between the European Commission and Irish citizens, providing communities in Ireland with really important information about our EU institutions. There are 7 Europe Direct Centres located in public libraries around the country, including 2 dual centres for Irish and English, all doing great work in their communities. They are managed by the library authorities and the Libraries Development Unit of the Local Government Management Agency. Without Europe Direct and the LGMA support, this competition would not be possible, and I would like to commend everyone involved for their hard work and efforts. I must also mention our fantastic library service, which is at the very centre of our communities. Even throughout the pandemic, our library staff continued to provide a range of important services, particularly for our elderly people who spent prolonged periods in their homes. It's great that our libraries are now back open again, and I would encourage you all to continue to use the services in your local library. Well done again to everyone who entered the competition via video this year and engaged in the debate. I am sure that the judges will have a very difficult task in choosing the overall winners. And as Minister, I will be watching and listening with great interest. Guramila Mahgav.
Thank you very much, Mr. Humphreys, for that really interesting presentation. We wish you all the best. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, now is the moment that the competition starts. And we have 12 contestants in total. Of these, we have 6 contestants in the 16 and under category, and we have 6 contestants in the 17 and over category. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with the 16 and under category. And our first contestant is Emer Honige, and Emer is from Carrow, and Carrow is part of the Ballinasloe Europe Direct Centre. And Emer is going to give us her presentation, Oscailga. Emer, off you go, away lad.
Brega málaithe agus statistiki. Is fad an lá tiiscin gur féidir leasúhaint as ólas leis scéala chur as a rocht. Ní nó né a has a Canary mílata agus politóí a baint leas as leagan gan íringe hí fellinnocht a dachtar of hain le na gás dhéanam. Nach nearna devaléras an Irish Press. In é lahas, tá se tábhachtach gomach irisisiúí agus creaaltóirí neamhsclách ag feimú leis an ólas a dhéimhnú agus cinnú gur se crainn agus fear. Le táchna ná an hóisiilta agus an tiiriseoir saoránach, tá sé níos deacra fós idir dhealú dhéanam idir na méid atá fear agus a méid atá bréagach. Ígtar airgin mór na dochtúr spin le na cinnú gur bé a leagan na eile an folatóir an leagan a hens os códafobal. Tá an bréagáisnéis agus an míáisnéis donú sans mar ulasí a bheachtas go leor. Agus tá sé begnach dúionta an éiringe a ád, agus sinna fá bhfuil me sé a bhábhar an rón. Níl sampla níos fearr na Donald Trump, agus an feachtas tá aige tora an táchaán Uachtaránachta America an Nora a chur ar neamhnaí. Cé go na bhótaí córa agus an tura deimhnaí, Muam Trump, go bréagach, gur a cáilís agus camaléireacht ar bun agus nachfuil an tura crainn nó fear. Tá an feachtas bréagach se ar bun ag Trump le os cían blian, agus tá cuid go na mán fomarsaides na Stát Aontaithe, Fox, a hacaíonn leis. So stír eile, CNN, nach néintín, agus a chána go réalta méid tá bhráige. Fáir is annach eicimid anlís neamhsplách ar a gás. Fecha bratamocht, tá a leagan hain ag na pártaí ar fad gan sunchar bhés ag an próteáil thuisgirtéireann ar thrádáil agus gnó. Úsáid an siad focla an chunra hain na gás dhéanam. Cuoinech le bos, £350 million are sent to the EU each week. Vote Leave and fund our NHS. Ní féidir go mar chola leagan cring ar féidir? Is boltgrucht do chud is múgan na Haragúntí. Agus céir fhí COVID na déag, céibh cóchealaigh atá cloisteang ó húsamste, faoi cárthosaise, faoin vaccine, agus a thóchar ar chláinte roine. Haragúntí bréagacha nó míchrainn tá dá núsáid le lábhaisneach a chur ar roine. Cahamid ar muíon a churs na hólaithe agus na dochtúraí. Ach céim dochtar, an Dr. Houlihan nó Dr. Dolores Cahill. Céim ólicht, an hydroxychloroquine nó Pfizer. Is féidir an Haragúnt céanna úsáid a ggóhéics na háirithe éráide. Ghlaachtar leis go an éráid garú, achas féidir go leor go na Haragúntí faoin na bailí leis a scéal leis a bhréicnú, mar go mbeadh bolscaireacht de comhlachtaí móra ag chuir ar son na leas a hain. Toigh fuinneamh in anúirte agus muinte goiche. Tá go leor acu sin ar focholachtaí do comhlachtaí móra óla le aim brabú síanam. An rud is mó hasís na cásanna seo ar fad le córas muirseachta agus ceistúcháin neamhsplách. Tá sé sin riachtanach a réin na bréagáisnéise.
Okay, Emer, thank you so much for that presentation. I really liked the force and the thought that went into what you have said. Our next contestant is Ross Anderson. Ross comes from the Europe Direct Centre in Waterford. Ross, the floor is yours, please.
Martin Luther King once said, "I have a dream." Well, I also have a dream. A dream that one day we will have reputable sources of information and not the lies you see everywhere today. Hello, my name is Ross Anderson, and I'm going to tell you about why it is impossible to discern the lies from the truth in today's news and social media. First of all, let's go back in time, back to when Stalin was in power. We all know the ways Stalin gained his power. He started by telling his comrades lies about one another, turning them against each other. However, after Stalin became dictator, he used a different method of keeping control: propaganda. He brainwashed civilians into thinking that he was God. Do we have this in the 21st century? Do you think that world leaders may still brainwash and control their subjects? Or have we as a race moved past this method of fear-mongering? Let's move on to something more recent. The Donald Trump election and his presidential reign. We all know Donald Trump had his problems, especially with immigrants moving into America to get a better life. One thing I never expected, however, was his attitude towards climate change. I remember being appalled and outraged hearing him state that climate change is a hoax created by the Chinese government to make US manufacturing non-competitive. How did we as a race let someone like that run one of the biggest countries in the world? Someone who says that the earth is fine, not addressing all the problems in the world, with America being one of the biggest factors of climate change, but then saying it is a conspiracy to make US manufacturing less competitive. How did people think it was a good idea to let that man become president? A man that would let the rest of the world suffer for his own personal gain. Lastly, we have social media. Social media, in my opinion, is the biggest source of fake news and misinformation, that mainly being news reports on COVID-19. A few days ago, I read a news article saying that there were over 5,000 cases. However, when you click on the article and read more about it, it says that that was the cumulative of the past 3 days. How can they willingly make articles like this, making people scared just to get more clicks? Do they have no shame? And it's not just COVID that they try to sell. All over the internet, there are scam websites and apps that will try to take your personal information and sell it on. Only a few days ago, I was looking through Twitter and saw an ad that said, "Make thousands with this one simple trick." I clicked on it, and it asked me to sign up for something using my email address and password. I immediately closed out of it, as I did not want to fall victim to its trap. However, a lot of people would not know to do that, especially young kids and the elderly. They are much more susceptible to these kind of traps, as they would not have had the internet in their day. All over the world, we constantly see fake news and misinformation. The problem is, we don't know or don't bother to do our own research to find out if it's the truth. We should not have to worry about being fed lies and deceit, all for the gain of others.
Thank you very much, Ross, for that very interesting presentation. Interesting that you mentioned Trump, social media, and I really like the background that you had. Lots of gym equipment and the sound of running water. So we go on to our next contestant, please. And our next contestant is Finn McGoldrick. And Finn comes from the Europe Direct Centre in Clones. Finn, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you all with the motion, Lies, Damned Lies and Statistics. This topic explores how propaganda, statistics and the manipulation of information plays an important role in the society of today. I will be using the acronym TRUTH to underpin and support this argument. T is for transparency. Without transparency, we can have no trust. Being transparent with the truth, especially when dealing with statistics, is fundamental to any just and fair society. We only have to look at how our world leaders include statistics in every line of argument. Is this the truth, or is this a manipulation of information to suit their own agenda? Also, statistics may sometimes be manipulated in advertising as to create a better statistics that favours the company. For example, health companies often state that 3 out of 4 of the general public prefer their product than that of the competition, when in truth it was 3 out of 4 of a sample, not the general public. Is this not being transparent with the information? R is for rights. Is it not every person's right to have the correct information so we can make up our own independent opinions? Is that not the most fundamental part of a democratic society? All information should be made accessible, the pros and the cons, thus allowing people to reach their own conclusion, not somebody else's opinion. U is for untruth. Fake news is now a widely used term in the modern age. Certain people create fake news as to attract other people to their own ideology. There is no doubt this is propaganda, and this is quickly becoming the norm in the digital age. It deliberately misinforms people, influences the creator's personal views, and deceives the mind. We only have to look at what happened last year on Capitol Hill to see the extent of what fake news has become. This leads me on to my next point. T is for trickery. Sometimes governments, organisations and individuals, when communicating information, may manipulate the data to suit their own gain. Is this not trickery? I say yes, and I, for one, would like all the information, the good, the bad and the ugly, so I can make up my own mind. A prime example of trickery was during the Brexit campaign. The Vote Leave movement claimed that it would invest £350 million into the NHS. This was never going to happen, and it did not happen. Was this trickery to suit their agenda? This brings me on to my final point. H. H is for honesty. We are taught at a very young age to always tell the truth. So why now has this basic concept been challenged? Social media has impacted honesty severely. Instead of being independent in our own view, we now tend to follow the masses on social media. This, in my opinion, is deeply wrong. We only have to look at Donald Trump on Twitter during his presidency. He tried to influence people in favour of his views and trash the opposition. This new digital age in which we live in has become the most toxic environment in every societal matter. Left versus right, anti-vax versus pro-vax, democratic versus totalitarian. The free, unfiltered World Wide Web has become the propaganda machine. That is lies, damned lies and statistics. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for listening to my argument.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Finn. I like the way that you used that acronym to support your argument. I also like the way that you spoke about trickery and Brexit. So thank you very much for that presentation. Our next contestant comes from the Europe Direct Centre in Letterkenny, and her name is Lee Rose Davis. Lee Rose, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Leah Rose Davis from Scolwara, Buncrana, and I will be entering the 16 and under category. I will be agreeing with the topic Lies, damned lies and statistics. Establishing the truth is impossible in today's world of misinformation, disinformation and propaganda. Lies, damned lies and statistics. The origin of this quote is still not fully known, but it is believed that Mark Twain popularised it and attributed it to British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli. Others say Disraeli never said it, so the irony is even the origin of this phrase is controversial, making you wonder what source you can believe. This phrase suggests that statistics can be used to mislead people even worse than any lie. So this brings us back to the topic today. Establishing the truth is impossible in today's world of misinformation, disinformation and propaganda. To demonstrate this, I am going to use the COVID-19 vaccine as my example. While reading and researching the vaccine with a very open mind and an unbiased point of view, I got very conflicting reports about whether or not it is actually effective or whether it is simply a hoax. On the HSE website, I got the statistic that states that 7 days after your second vaccination, you should be 95% protected against COVID. Yet the New York Times stated that COVID may be spread by vaccinated people as easily as unvaccinated people. Both sides equally quoted statistics to support their arguments, but they both quoted conflicting statistics, so what can we believe? When the COVID vaccine was first introduced, NPHET told us that if Ireland got to 90% vaccination rate, we would be able to move on from COVID. Yet we are now at 90% vaccination rate, yet the numbers are higher than ever before. So, yet again, more conflicting reports. Anti-vaccinators are coming out and saying that vaccinations are simply a money racket for large pharmaceutical companies who are undoubtedly making billions from these vaccines. They also claim that vaccinations are a form of discrimination. For example, a restaurant would not turn away a certain of colour, yet they are allowed to discriminate against somebody who is unvaccinated. Therefore, I have to ask, how can we possibly establish the truth in today's world of misinformation, disinformation and propaganda? According to the Oxford Dictionary, propaganda means information of a biased or misleading nature used to promote a political cause or point of view. Immunologist Luke O'Neill said that the COVID vaccine was 100% effective in preventing hospitalisations. And NPHET have said that people who were vaccinated were unlikely to be hospitalised and even less likely to end up in ICU. However, the Irish Times said that on the week they checked, 54% of hospitalised patients had been fully vaccinated and 25% of patients in ICU had been fully vaccinated. Does this not demonstrate the potential propaganda we are being subjected to? Ladies and gentlemen, members of the public are being misinformed and disinformed. How can we possibly establish the truth when we are being given two sets of conflicting opinions and reports? Therefore, I agree with the motion today. Lies, damned lies and statistics. Establishing the truth is impossible in today's world of misinformation, disinformation and propaganda. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Leah Rose. It was a very interesting presentation. I liked the idea that there was conflicting reports from different sources and that it was really up to us, the general public, to decide which of the sources we had to trust, if you like. I thought that it was just interesting that you ended up saying that, establishing the truth is actually impossible. It's a challenge for us. I'd like to introduce our next contestant, please. And our next contestant is Anna O'Brien, who comes from the Europe Direct Centre in Portlaoise. Anna, can we have your presentation, please?
Educators, fellow competitors, classmates, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anna O'Brien and today I will be discussing the topic lies, damn lies and statistics, and why I completely agree with this motion. Establishing the truth is near impossible in today's world of misinformation, disinformation and propaganda. We've heard these words before. We've heard them on the television, in newspapers, school, but most particularly social media. We're all familiar with the phrase, do not believe everything you see online. We know the meaning, we understand it, it's simple. Well then why is false information online such a problem, and how on earth is there so much of it? Misinformation, disinformation, propaganda. So what is misinformation? Misinformation is any false or incorrect information being spread but with no intent to mislead. It occurs in our day-to-day lives. We mishear details, we forget details. We tell our friend a story, they tell someone else, and so on and so on. Like Chinese whispers, details can be altered dramatically. It sounds innocent, but this doesn't make it harmless. It is still false information that hides the truth and that can change the way people think and ultimately the way people act. Now think about, with social media, how information comes in endless streams and can be shared at the speed of light, with no one stopping to think, hold on, is this actually accurate? Moving on to disinformation. Disinformation is deliberately misleading information. It can often be destructive and divisive and extremely powerful. Examples would include clickbait, which would be when websites contain over-exaggerated dramatic headlines to attract viewers, or sloppy journalism when articles contain facts that are not thoroughly researched. This brings me to my third word, propaganda. Propaganda is misleading or biased information that is used to promote a political cause or point of view. Now tell me, how are you and I supposed to trust online social media platforms when they choose profits, publicity, and increased income over user safety? And we think that they're honest, reliable, and trustworthy. It doesn't make sense. Facebook has now disclosed the prevalence of bullying and harassment on its site, saying that such content was seen between 14 and 15 times per every 10,000 views. A former Facebook employee has disclosed documents that state that the company chose profits over user safety. And this is precisely my point. The way we think is influenced by the information we receive, and it affects everything. Our emotions, the government, the economy. Pinterest users spend 29% more than non-users when shopping. Isn't that mad? Establishing the truth is near impossible in today's world of misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda. Thank you so much for your time.
So thank you very much, Anna. That was a very confident presentation. I like the idea of the Chinese whispers. And I also like the idea that you were able to use the threes, or the rule of three, very consistently within that presentation. Thank you very much for that. Our next contestant comes from the Europe Direct Centre in Sligo. It's Alfie Barron. Alfie, the floor is yours, please.
Lies, damned lies, and statistics. A phrase that used to be humorous has taken a dark turn. Once used to bolster an argument, statistics could be manipulated to suit the situation. And how we laughed when someone reminded us that the worst type of lies were statistics used and abused in this manner. We live in a world that has been described as post-truth and can no longer rely on any statistics. We are encouraged to question experts, do our own research, and find our own version of the truth. What was once sacrosanct, the truth, has become distorted inside the echo chambers of social media and shredded by the polarization of the algorithm. A recent statistic used in this way was the Brexit bus windfall promised for the British NHS if the UK left the EU. The 350 million statistic was selective at best, ignoring rebates and payments to the UK by the EU. Something as simple as this should be easy to check. An EU budget exists, as well as full information on member contributions. Simple mathematics could prove or disprove this huge claim. Sadly, the truth is no longer this simple. Opinion is now as important as fact. We are bombarded by the interpretations and opinions of experts and commentators on every side of the argument. It is impossible to cut through this white noise and seize upon the truth. Misinformation and disinformation have been used by governments to control the narrative in pursuit of their aims. Specialists were trained to operate in this grey area. These spies would go undercover inside other governments or strategic corporations in their efforts to pursue the interests of their governments. In the 60s, there was a huge outcry upon the discovery of Kim Philby, a mole inside British intelligence, who, along with his associates, had revealed secrets to the Russians. Today, these so-called spies are no longer needed, as there are already moles inside our devices, influencing and shaping us to their goals without our knowledge. Russian and Chinese operatives have been responsible for organizing conflicting events in the US at the same time and in the same city in order to spread discord. Moles like Kim Philby no longer frequent smoke-filled, dingy bars in far-flung, exotic places, ladies and gentlemen, but work out of brightly lit tech startups in Beijing and Moscow. We are bombarded at every turn with information, misinformation, and disinformation. And our ability to filter out the truth has been eroded. Each of us feel that we can spot a lie, definitely identify a damned lie, but I believe that it is indeed impossible to establish the truth, and we are all now just statistics, modern-day Manchurian candidates lost in the algorithm. Thank you.
Alfie, thank you very much for that. I thought that your presentation was very confident. I liked your vocabulary, and to be honest, your reference to the Manchurian candidate lost in the algorithm, I think, was a choice use of phrase. So thank you very much for that. Alfie, you were the final contestant in the under 16s, the 16 and unders. So now we're going to start with the second category, which is the 17 and over. So could I please call on the first contestant in the over 17 category? And the first contestant is Kaya Gora, and she's from the Europe Direct Centre in Portlaoise. Kaya, the floor is yours.
Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. George Orwell. Adjudicators, timekeepers, and friends. Today I'll be discussing the topic of misinformation and propaganda. As a teenager, I can confidently say that technology is a big part of my life. Now, more than ever during the pandemic, the use of social media has been booming. Millions of young, vulnerable minds, perfect targets for propaganda, don't you think? Recently, Facebook has been under harsh criticism and was found to be promoting accounts and sites that glorify and promote extreme dieting and eating disorders to young girls on Instagram who have showed any interest at all in weight loss or insecurities about their bodies. 10,200 deaths are caused by eating disorders per year. 26% of people with eating disorders attempt suicide. I have a young sister who is 10 years old now, and it is terrifying to me to think that she could possibly be a victim of this because a billion-dollar company doesn't have enough income. I would also like to talk about a country that I have particular interest in, Russia, although I could have chosen any other country. Russia thrives off of propaganda. The government owns 60% of newspapers and almost all of Russian TV stations. Failures are downplayed, criticisms are avoided, and praise is heaped onto the president. The media has huge power over the Russian population and preys on its fears. They are threatened with economic disasters and territorial upheaval, which can only be prevented through loyalty to the Kremlin. The EU, US, and UK are all portrayed as places with moral decay, political instability, and impoverishment. And you might think, how can people even begin to believe this? Well, 72% of Russians don't own a passport, and most of them don't even have the financial means to travel abroad. Going back to technology, 10 years ago, social networking brought people to the streets protesting against parliamentary elections. Since then, a set of technological and legislative measures were put in place, which included tapping phones and computers and introducing criminal charges for content labeled extremist. These measures have turned the internet in Russia into a highly policed terrain. And who is to say we're not susceptible to such things? We are more vulnerable now than ever to be affected by propaganda. Misinformation is not like a plumbing problem we can fix. It is a social condition, like a crime, that we need to constantly monitor and adjust to. Tom Rosenstiel. Thank you.
Kaya, thank you very much for that presentation. I noticed that you took a pot shot, let's say, at some of the people that we find to be the most problematic in this whole area of disinformation and misinformation. And I noticed that you particularly took aim at Facebook and Russia. Thank you very much for your presentation. So the next candidate is Siobhan Fitzgerald. And Siobhan is from the Europe Direct Centre in Sligo. Siobhan, the floor is yours, please.
Yes, There is much misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda in today's world. How much? Well, I'm not going to conjure up inevitably biased statistics because we don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. But suffice to say that these weapons of mass deception are all around us and have been for centuries. However, good news. I believe that it is possible to establish the truth. But can we handle the truth? Because it takes awareness, constant scrutiny, and introspection. Firstly, awareness. We need to be aware that we all lie. Why, how, and who? We lie to sell, control, avoid punishment, to get what we want, and sometimes for another's good, as is the case in The Loving Parent. Santa's watching. In the same way that we use lies, we need to be aware that others use lies on us. How do we lie? We use powerful, persuasive, carefully chosen language and stories. We may even leave out certain details so that, as the song in Calamity Jane goes, we're not exactly lying. We're just careless with the truth. And who lies? Well, who doesn't? Some people are naturally good at it, some practice, and some actually receive professional training. Secondly, through constantly, forensically, scrutinizing and questioning. Why? How do you know? Who says? What is the source of this information? Thirdly, introspection. Nelson Mandela stated, our greatest fear is that we are powerful. Gurus down through the ages have taught that the real power and truth lie within, and that we are enough as we are. But that truth doesn't serve the greedy needs of the propaganda machines. So let's be honest. We all lie. We are born into a world of lies. But to say that truth is impossible in a world of misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda is frankly yet another disempowering lie to keep people feeling hopeless, helpless, and weak. Like Nelson Mandela's belief that nobody is born hating, I believe that nobody is born a liar. So there is hope because truth existed first. With awareness, constant scrutiny, and introspection, it is possible to establish the truth. But can we handle the truth?
Thank you very much, Siobhan. That was a very interesting presentation. It was very engaging. Again, you also used threes in your debate, and I thought it was a very reflective presentation. So thank you very much for that. Our next contestant comes from the Europe Direct Centre in Letterkenny. It's Brian Marshall. Brian, let's hear what you have to say, please.
Judges, I disagree with tonight's motion. I think that it is possible to establish the truth in today's world, but I would have two caveats with that. Firstly, and most importantly, that you do not get your news from social media. The American Journal of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene last year did a survey showing that 6,000 people died directly as a result of COVID misinformation and 40,000 were hospitalized. This was in places like Iran, South America, and Africa, where people actually drank methanol and alcohol-based cleaning products thinking that they were a cure for COVID after hearing about it on social media. But it's not just far away places where social media spreads rumours and so-called facts. Irish social media had rumours like it was unsafe to breastfeed after getting a COVID jab, or that Lidl were going to demand COVID certs to enter into their stores, or that mRNA technology had never been tested in humans, ignoring all the clinical trials. If you want news, you need to go to an established news provider like BBC, RTE, or Reuters International, who fact check everything. The International Fact Checking Network has been in existence since 2015, but Facebook and WhatsApp only signed up to it on March 2020, and TikTok and Twitter have not joined yet. The second caveat is to beware of deepfake. Channel 4 last year did an alternative Christmas message from this person, whom I'm sure you all recognise. Only halfway through the message, she got up and danced on the tables, and only when the message was finished was this actress revealed to be the deepfake. In conclusion, you need to be aware of deepfake. And don't get your news from social media, but from established fact-checking news organisations. Judges, thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. That was a most interesting conversation, debate, discussion. I particularly like the idea of the deep fake and the idea that somebody could pretend to be the Queen and dance on the table. It's very interesting. Thank you very much for that. Our next contestant comes from the Europe Direct Centre in Blanchardstown. It's April Bracken. April, let's hear what you have to say, please.
Hello, my name is April, and I am against the motion, lies, damn lies and statistics. Establishing the truth is impossible in today's world of misinformation, disinformation and propaganda. While it is true that false information is widespread and easily accessible, the fact is disinformation has been around for a long time. Disinformation and propaganda are long established, reliable methods to gain and retain power, used by politicians, regimes and corporations the world over. These techniques are not new. What is new is our ability to find, access and share information faster than ever before, be it true or false. As a society, we are currently deep in the throes of a romantic relationship with digital technology. It's very personal. Everything has been tailored to fit our interests, our values, our political leanings. The bounty of content is limitless. So much to consume, so little time. What started out as a casual social networking tool is now the main source of news and information for many of us. We rely on these digital platforms such as YouTube, Facebook and Twitter for most of our information. The problem with this is that there is little or no accountability when the information shared on these platforms diverges from the truth. In her recent interview with EU Direct Blanchardstown, Dr. Eileen Cullity of DCU explained that these digital platforms are not legally responsible for their content. Facebook, for example, has a policy of not fact-checking their politicians. The goal of these digital platforms is not to encourage truthful, high-quality content. It is to keep us engaged by whatever means necessary. What's more, the content we are shown tends to be of a similar perspective to our own. This means that we are usually only getting one side of the story. So yes, establishing the truth can be difficult, but it's not impossible. How can we get beyond the lies? By getting our news from multiple reliable resources, by seeking out and listening to other opinions, even if those views don't align with our own. By checking our facts before we hit that share button so that we ourselves don't spread misinformation. We can acknowledge our personal responsibility as citizens of the virtual world by educating ourselves. We can become aware of the limitations of the platforms we use through media literacy education. The internet is part of the solution, as these resources are available to all of us. We just need to look for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, April. That was a most interesting discussion. I thought that you were quite confident, and I liked the fact that you made some recommendations to us. Thank you very much for doing all that preparation for us. Our next contestant comes from the Europe Direct Centre Ballinasloe, in fact, the Carrow Centre. It's Owen O'Lupoin. Owen, the floor is yours, please.
Níl doubt a go COVID-19, Heis an síla áú le hábhlíon an nos. Bua ein na meán hóisiilta chun na níirne áit agus cumarsáid a chuineáil, le na chéile le loch leis agus bhéaltais. Loch déisteachta, ón bré go nó níirne bhí na meán hóisiilta le ling na pandéime. Dúirt Paul Reid príomhaim nach an HSC, go an HSC úsad as na meán hóisiilta, chun na níirne agus na fíricí a thuairt, agus gur frost éan le iad. Úsad ú appan agus fógraí mar hampla an hashtag stay at home, 68,000 úd chuile lá. Dos nach leanan le rom, Twitter gus Instagram, mar VX, nach bré go bhí meán effigiúil an HSC. Dúirt Svíd nach ionta sa bit, go bhfuil, nu chuid íon fangéad sa éanlainn, faoi os cin rábhíon 12, Heis an vaccine a hóideáil. Mar, bhí sé deir an ólas, bhí is sacún difriocht idir an níirine go sombréal. Paul Reid nó Jim O'Doherty, Tony Houlihan nó Delores Cehel, har Draxid Chloroquine nó Pfizer. Tá, seans go fangéad do chuine na héireann, faoi cearcha cúig. Ní chod drámchad nisce brenne primetime, na bhíonn sa géisteach le Morning Ireland. Siod drám a bhaint úsáid as na meán hóisiilta. Siod drám an an difriocht idir an níirne go sombréal. Rud a chur COVID-19. Loch déisteachta, siod statistic. The International Fact-Checking Institute.org. Gur gá, sé rud a dhéanam chun an bhréag a ahent. Checkad an faoinse, den cínta gúil se le trust. Fox News nó BBC. Lénis mún an na cean línsa, mar béidir, gur focla an úsadan chun an dul mulg a chud airtsa. Let each granny, no, let each comma granny. Check on the húda, check on the tola sus an data, mar, iron an nocht o second, gus second. Check on the tagarty fear, gus ever is sé. Cwr the ola selle, o sea welle, o fuinche elle. Dat in de kind kon sketa ato fear, is kon add an omla. Loch déisteachta, ní an nocht an leiniom ach nocht an leiné. Go chéna, ní an nocht a séchlog ach nocht soas go dín séchlog an jo. Ach, dá nú na meán hóisiilta, ní dóidianta an níirine a ád le hin second seo. Cílín brégo an bhd nachhfuil fear. Is it meg twain as Benjamin Disraeli a dúit. Go bhfuil brégo statisticí á. Ach, dá na Kardashians as cuit sa a piano, ní dóidianta an níirine a dheicnú, agus sin anfa bhfuil me sin line bhúm.
Owen, thank you very much for that presentation. I liked your confidence. And I also liked the way that you used COVID as an example in your presentation. Thank you very much for that. Our final contestant comes from the Europe Direct Centre in Waterford, and it's Shane Burke. Shane, the floor is yours, please.
Hello, adjudicators, judges, and esteemed guests. My name is Shane Burke, and today I'm presenting my thoughts on this matter of contention. I disagree with this statement, though not without caveat. We often hear on the news about fake news from all sides of political opinion directed towards all other sides of political opinion. The truth, meaning that what is said corresponds to reality, is becoming a rarer commodity. I, among many of you, I'm sure, have seen those group chats on Facebook or WhatsApp spreading disinformation about topical issues such as the COVID-19 vaccine. We may laugh at their bombastic claims and analogies, such as the Nazis said they were following orders too, in reference to obeying COVID-19 regulations. However, the effect of fake news was far-reaching. At the time of delivering this speech, 10.86% of the Irish population eligible for vaccination still haven't received their vaccine. It is undeniable that such misinformation campaigns, such as those mentioned, played a role in this. Political leaders, such as Donald Trump, are becoming much less credible, often engaging in deliberate misinformation in order to push their own agendas. This is seen most infamously with Trump's comment about immigrants. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime. Where did he find this information? Does reliable data agree with this statement? These questions should always be asked after such claims, but the problem is that they are not. The infinite amount of data, some reliable, some less so, on the internet means that almost any belief can be justified. This creates a bleak image. How can we possibly establish the truth in a world where truth is subjective, reliable data and sources are warped to fit certain narratives, and unreliable data is spread freely? I believe that the only way to establish the truth in today's world is by fighting the problem at its source, online. Much of the misinformation is found in fringe areas of the internet, two more mainstream ones. The research industry, as well as state sources offering information, have a very hard time breaking into the online sphere. The younger listeners today may have seen those Department of Health funded TikTok ads promoting the vaccine and attempting to debunk some of the disinformation and misinformation about the virus. Although this was a valiant effort, the videos were a bit too clinical. They had the vibe of a 50-year-old trying to be down with the kids, which I feel exacerbated the problem, making people irritated as to what they saw as intrusive. These sources of genuine information need to improve their online presence in such a manner that actually connects to the people it's trying to reach. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for that, Shane. That was a very interesting presentation. I like the fact that you mentioned Trump. Of course, Trump is easy to throw stones at. And you also mentioned COVID. So thank you very much for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the competition. I particularly liked the idea that some of the young people were very forthright in their ideas. It's clear to me that a lot of preparation was put into this event. And for that, I want to thank you. And I also want to thank the centres for doing so much preparation on these events. Okay, so now we're going to see a short video which was made by the European Parliament, which looks at the whole idea of misinformation and disinformation. There you are. I hope that gave you some idea of what to look out for when it comes to misinformation and disinformation. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm told that the judging panel has come to a decision, and I'd like to invite the chair of the judging panel, Paula Butler, to give an overview of the judges' deliberations.
Hello, my name is Paula Butler. I'm Assistant Chief Executive in the Local Government Management Agency with responsibility for local government strategy, research and communications, and including responsibility for the library development team. I'm absolutely thrilled to be the chair of the judges panel for the third year in a row for this fantastic event. The Europe Direct National Soapbox Final is always a highlight of the year to myself and my colleagues working in the library development team. I'm delighted that the event was still able to go ahead in this virtual format. And I want to say a special thank you to my colleague Ruth Montague for all the work and to the rest of the library development team for making it happen. The calibre of contestants in this year's final was yet again very high. The The passion and excellence in presentation skills that was demonstrated across both categories was extremely inspiring. The level of preparation and research that went into your entries was evident, and I have to say you all made the job of the judges very challenging, so well done to you all. So I want to share with you the criteria used by the judges in coming to a decision on the winners. As you know, there are two categories of contestant for the national final, 16 and under and 17 and over. Each contestant was assessed on the basis of 4 criteria. Number 1, the content and evidence of preparation, including the knowledge of the subject. 2, the presentation and delivery, including adherence to time limit. 3, structure and clarity. And 4, overall effectiveness and impact of presentation, based on the level of conviction, personal application, enthusiasm, or other strength of feeling, which is suggested by the soapbox format. Each criterion was given equal weight, and each contestant was marked out of 25 for each criterion, the total assessment combining to a maximum score of 100. We selected 2 winners, 1 from each category, and 1 highly commended runner-up from each category. Whilst the scores were very tight in both categories, I am delighted to say that the judges chose the winners by unanimous decision. So without further ado, I'd like to announce the candidates who received the highly commended runner-up position. So in the 16 and under category, the highly commended runner-up is Alfie Barron. Well done, Alfie. In the 17 and over category, the highly commended runner-up is Ono Lupon. Well done, Owen. So well done to you both. Excellent contestants. Now, back over to you, Tim.
So thank you, Paula, for the judging, telling us about the judging process and telling us who the highly commended person was in each category. I would now like to introduce Maria Walsh, who will announce the name of the winners. Maria Walsh is an Irish politician. She has been a member of the European Parliament in the Midlands Northwest constituency since the election in 2019. She's a member of the Fine Gael party, which in the European Parliament forms part of the European People's Party, the EPP. Outside of politics, some people perhaps might know her best as the winner of the 2014 Rose of Tralee pageant. Maria, the floor is yours, please.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to Tim Hayes for the warm introduction there. I'm delighted to greet you all from the European Parliament here in my office in Brussels. For those of you who may not know me, let me introduce myself. My name is Maria Walsh, and I'm a member of the European Parliament with the EPP group and Fine Gael at home in Ireland. I'd like to begin by extending a massive thank you to all contestants of the Europe Direct Soapbox competition. The quality of entries received was exceptional, and as Ireland's youngest MEP, it's extremely uplifting to witness such a rich dialogue surrounding EU affairs, specifically the topic of misinformation this year. When it comes to bridging the EU information gap, it starts with all of you, myself included. Despite challenging international circumstances brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, the concentration on the European Union response has sparked healthy debate and dialogue around what the EU does in different policy areas, and our Europe Direct Centres have been pioneers of this debate and a vital instrument for the channeling citizens' feedback to the Commission and here ourselves in the Parliament too. Your engagement on the topic of lies, damned lies and statistics is extremely relevant in an age of misinformation, disinformation and propaganda. Citizens are frequently faced with the dilemma of whether to support or reject true or false news concerning climate change, vaccinations, genetically modified agricultural products, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence applications, and other prominent issues we all face. Our winners today have effectively captured this threat and went one step further to outline possible solutions and methods to really counteract disinformation. Without further ado, I'd like to commend our winners for the 16 and under category. A huge congratulations to Emer Nidonacha from School Quim Shihuk Kirin, who submitted to Europe Direct in Ballinasloe. And for the 17 and over category, well done to April Bracken from the Europe Direct in Blanchardstown. I was incredibly impressed by the level of detail and planning that was showcased within both of your speeches. Of course, your inclusion of an EU-specific policy framework is excellent to see, and encapsulates the power of social media platforms. It is vital that we comprehend what it is our EU institutions do for us on a daily basis, especially in light of disinformation laws and policies. So I'd like to give you both an opportunity to gain a deeper insight into how we operate, and so I'm extending a warm invitation for you both to come and visit the European Parliament here in Brussels in 2022. I'm thrilled to sponsor your visit, and I hope it will further strengthen your interest and grow for our European Union. And I'd like to finish by once again commending all of this year's participants in the Soapbox competition, and especially our Europe Direct centres across the country. It is a free service, it's open and available to all communities, and it's great to see so many of our youth availing of these resources on their doorstep. Let's continue this dialogue and debate in the new year. And finally, Cogorgicus again to you all, and especially to Emer and April. I'm really looking forward to your visit in 2022. Keep safe.
So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this competition. For those who have won, the Europe Direct Centres will be in touch regarding the prizes. There was a prize of €1,000 for each category provided by the European Commission representation. I want to thank the Europe Direct Centres for organising the event. And last but not least, I want to thank all the contestants for the hard work that you have put into it. And I must say, I found listening to this so interesting, enlightening, and it gives me a sense of hope to listen to all of these arguments. So thank you very much to everybody, and hopefully we'll see you next year in person. Bye-bye.